FinFreeCloud, it's been a minute, that's for sure. Um, I've been I've been thinking a lot about personal branding and how, the my preference. I don't think I'm alone in this, but I'm going to share my preference. My preference is um, I didn't really grow up being super active on the internet, social media, different accounts. I remember not even getting a Facebook until it was kind of the the pay to play tax for organizing parties in college. So kind of to know what's going on, ended up making an account, and that was my first social account, but never really posted content. I think here and there, but nothing super active. It wasn't until I actually had one of my early businesses, Now You're Talking, where this moment came that making videos on LinkedIn was still an untapped resource for a few reasons, but the main reason being that LinkedIn still being that super serious professional platform. People were posting videos on other platforms, but weren't really posting on LinkedIn. So I ended up getting active for business purposes. So when it comes to all this is to say, I always wanted my business to speak more highly than just me. I want the business to be able to live on its own and operate on its own. So the idea of personal branding, uh, not to say I'm at a crossroads. Maybe it's more that acknowledging that the world is ever changing, and that call it a personal brand, call it, um, maybe there's another phrase to say, but basically, um, call it funneling people to whatever you're interested, whatever serves your goals. And as much as personal branding is not why I, wake up in the morning, but when I had started this FinFreeCloud, the idea, you can maybe fact check me on one of my earlier uploads. The idea was that when it comes to making videos, yes, there are a lot of you could have a lot of costs when it comes to getting the right cameras, audio, cloud storage, integrations, and now there's always been automation, but now like AI level automation. So the cost could be really high financially. Um, Depends who you talk to, because if you're talking to, like, I was watching a podcast the other day, and they were saying how um, media is a lot cheaper than product, in the sense that the feedback loops are much quicker with media. You could put up an upload, and then within 24 hours you can have some relative sense of how it's doing. It's a little different when it comes to YouTube, as I understand, because YouTube is always feeding your content over time. But um, basically, I think at a certain level of business, certain level of wealth, media becomes a very cheap mode of advertising, creating feedback loops for maybe a potential product, or uh, a wait list that you have for a product that you're soon to release. But I think for like the everyday person, it's easy to get caught up in, what's the best software that I can buy, the best editing software. Is it still Adobe Premiere, or should I be using, some of those built-in options that come with social media apps? The name's slipping my mind right now, but the one that kind of came with TikTok became very popular, and people have done well simply using that mobile editing app. Take a pause here, go back to why FinFreeCloud. My memory of starting FinFreeCloud was that for the everyday person, even if you're not super clear on your goals yet, The reality is you're going to need other people to help you achieve those goals. And in a world that's digital first, you do have an incentive to take the lead on your narrative, even if you don't totally know what goal you want to get to. If you want to be online to serve a business, to bring leads to a business, or to um, maybe just get over your fear of public speaking, um, maybe to just explore new technology and stay up on trends. Um, I thought FinFreeCloud was a way to kind of capture um, the sentiment that I felt, and I think maybe not everyone's put words to it, but basically, when you're doing content online, particularly video, it's a very vulnerable medium. You're not only critical on yourself, how you sound is um, it's very hard to listen to yourself at first because you don't realize you have an idea of what your voice sounds like, but then when you hear it mirrored back to you, it's almost without doubt, nearly 100% that it's like, oh, I don't recognize that voice. Who is that talking? And then also how you look. That's more of an obvious one. If we even when you look in a mirror, you're just like, huh, like I didn't see that, or didn't notice this. But the audio, the voice part can really throw people off. Like, I really sound like that? And usually the first thought is, I sound really annoying. My voice is really obnoxious. I think this is where I think a lot of people think I'm in my uploads in the past that I'm more of like a motivational video person, a motivational speaker. Um, I kind of thought, I guess that was I guess in truth it was a compliment. For me, it never really sat well as a compliment because my kind of understanding of motivational speakers is that there's this element of all bark, no bite. I wanted to be seen as a legitimate business owner or a legitimate business operator. So to be told, hey, you're such a motivational speaker on LinkedIn. You're so motivational. It never really sat well with me, even though maybe the intent of where the person was coming from you know was a good intent. Maybe if I was able to get past the semantics of it all and maybe sub out motivational for inspiring, that seems to have an easier bridge over to you can inspire people when you start a business, when you're the leader, or at a higher position in a company, that you have the ability when you're in a leadership position to inspire people. So maybe semantics is something moving forward that not to to reflect, yes, but not to think too hard about the semantics. Like motivational speaker, motivate. I knew I was a speaker, but motivational seemed to irk me the wrong way, even if that wasn't the intent. So um, I remember now when I started this FinFreeCloud, I remember talking through the setup of how I get the videos up in a way that kind of connecting just a few softwares. Um, but I do remember I get about 30 minutes on camera before the video stops, and I realize now I'm already 10 minutes in. I'm 1/3 into my quota for this video, so um, I it's so easy to go on tangents with this. People usually, I would say, they say you do better than you feel like you did on video. Um, for the last 5 to 7 minutes, I've been trying to get to the point of why FinFreeCloud. Why did I name it FinFreeCloud? I'm one of those people that I remember talking to fellow creative business people in the past, and I'm one of those people that when I come up with an idea, I want to go out and buy the .com domain. And I remember with Now You're Talking, I had my standard domain, the nytalking.com. And then I had a domain for my personal name. Um, I remember actually, I forget what the total amount was, the dollar amount, but I remember just buying up domains for anything I thought was a good idea or something I could spin off later as a project, maybe a separate business, but more like a different line of business under the Now You're Talking umbrella or under the NY Talking umbrella. Um, so I'm one of those people that loves to come up with ideas. Um, Not knowing though which ideas are worth kind of really pushing all my weight into. So um, finfreecloud was an idea that came to be. I had kind of this part part logistical, part reflective, part maybe philosophical um, understanding, or not understanding, but um, kind of way of explaining video content in the modern age, where making video, as far as like creating a video content engine, that's where I think financial costs can get higher. But depending on where you are on the wealth ladder, kind of like those points I was mentioning earlier, FinFreeCloud was that there's a lot of costs when it comes to outside of financial. If we take the financial, put it over here. Let's assume it's super cheap. There's emotional costs of being on video, having an active presence online. There's this the vulnerability cost, emotional cost, psychological cost, and there's crossover with those four categories I just mentioned. Um, but then I thought, if you take just like YouTube in particular, to upload videos on YouTube is technically financially free. Um, that phrasing could probably use some work. Just uploading a video to YouTube does not make you financially free. I guess theoretically, if you do really well, it could. But the FinFreeCloud was a handle that I saw that was available, and I grabbed it. Is that the cost financially is free to upload to, in this case, the YouTube cloud. Um, but like as I mentioned, there's all those other costs of the emotional, psychological, vulnerable, and then to build those out. The fear of what other people will think about how you talk, the things that you find interesting that you think you're just like a crazy nerd about. Not everyone's gonna feel the same way. Uh, all this is to say that I felt been feeling recently about do my goals, despite not wanting to be the personal brand person. Um, in my small circle, I kind of became the person people looked to get active on camera for the most part, as the primary medium, but to be active online. But personally, I felt like I didn't want to be the person that does a personal brand just for the sake of being famous. Um, I've mentioned this to a few people in my life about, in a perfect world, I'd love to be kind of in a boring line of business, something that I enjoy, but boring to the common eye. I make the joke of like, I had a family member that used to work at waste management, and I thought, being in the garbage business might not be the most exciting business from the outside looking in, but I imagine it is a very high demand service, and therefore you can do very well financially in an example of the garbage business. So doing video, I feel like video is actually a flashy business. It's sort of like the cool thing to do. I think I'm much more interested in using video to push through to another another avenue. But it does seem like, based on my past experience, based on some of the skills that are, for the most part, natural to me, and then acquiring some technical skills, it seems like I am uniquely positioned to have a video presence online. It wouldn't be crazy for me to even just train other people of how to be. I don't even know if comfortable is the right word, because like you don't really have to be crazy comfortable. You just kind of have to build a routine. At first, it really starts as like having at least one person to hold you accountable, usually someone outside of yourself. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of thoughts going on in my head, but at the end of the day, I think um, I wanted to at least get some version of this recorded on camera. I chose the finfreecloud project. I still have a bunch of other ideas that I want to spend time on. It's a matter, though, of picking which one, maybe two, but really which one I want to put all of my weight into.